A senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, along with former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. So, Judge, I mean, of all the decisions left for the court to make, few is as important as that ending birthright citizenship. Now, we've discussed it a lot. 14th Amendment, written after the Civil War, to grant citizenship to the children of freed slaves. But does that count for everyone? We're about to find out.
We are about to find out, and we can't really indicate which way this is going to go from the oral argument, which was back a few months ago. The question is, can the president definitively determine a meaning of a constitutional phrase when it's inconsistent with the meaning that the courts have applied to it? I would be stunned, and I'm going to guess Doug would as well, if the answer to that is yes, because for 220 years, the court has had the last say on the meaning of phrases in the Constitution. The other side of this is the court may very well say, this is not for us to decide, it's for Congress, because the 14th Amendment says Congress shall have the power to enforce the provisions of this amendment, and they haven't done so.
What's your take on this, Doug? How did the 14th Amendment go from guaranteeing citizenship to children of slaves as being interpreted as granting automatic citizenship to the children of people here illegally, or people who are now coming here specifically to give birth?
Yeah, the big legal question is, allegiance to the United States. If you look back at the historical documents and so forth, in order to get U.S. citizenship, you had to show some allegiance to the country. There are two issues here. It's not only the offspring of people who entered the United States illegally. You also have this birth or tourism thing, where very wealthy people, ironically, fly into the United States, have their child here for the prestige value of my child's a United States citizen. Working off Judge Napolitano, I've said before, I'm going to say it again, I think that it's up to Congress. The statute right now says if you're born as the offspring of two diplomats, for example, you're not a citizen. So it's not like every single person who's born here is a citizen. That's an exception. There are others. I'm not going to bore everybody with them, but they could add this. The offspring of people who broke the law are not citizens, but it would be Congress, not the president.
All right, well, we will find out. So when it comes to the Federal Reserve case, Judge, if the court sides with the president on this, what would that mean for future administrations who are basically trying to influence monetary policy? Because one of the reasons why the Fed chair is appointed for a longer term than the president is so you have continuity and stability.
Well, if the president can fire members of the governors of the board of the Federal Reserve, then it would no longer be independent. It would just be an appendage of the President of the United States. That would be a profound and radical change from the reason for which it was created. Not all of us are fans of the Federal Reserve, but it's been around for 100 years, and up until this presidency has been relatively independent. Presidents use the bully pulpit to try and affect the Federal Reserve, but they don't use firing. Justice Thomas made a statement, I don't know if this was intentional or just a slip, during oral argument once, in which he said, well, we all know that this doesn't apply to the Federal Reserve. The oral argument was on the issue of whether heads of administrative agencies, another case coming down today or Thursday, applies. So I think the president is not going to be able to fire the head of the Federal Reserve, and that will preserve its independence.
So, Doug, what other cases that are pending for the Supreme Court do you think Americans really need to pay attention to?
Well, first, on the Federal Reserve, it's clear that the person can only be fired for cause.
Right.
So that creates a much more difficult landscape. And I agree with the judge. I don't think the administration is going to be successful. The related point the judge also mentioned is firing other administrative agency heads. There, the legal analysis starts getting into, well, wait a minute, is this really purely an executive branch person, or do they have other functions outside? I also think the administration may be having a tough time. But the other big case is this temporary protected status case. Obviously, going to be very, very interesting to see what the court does with that, Judge.
There are about 350,000 people living under temporary protected status, granted by President Trump's predecessors, not just Joe Biden, but other predecessors. Many of them have married, have had children, they are Americanized. If the president can revoke that temporary protected status, you have about 350,000 people exposed to deportation, and each one of them gets a hearing. Wow.
I can just imagine like Justice Gorsuch writing the first word of the T in TPS stands for temporary. So, all right, well, we'll see where it goes. Judge Doug, great to see you guys on set here with us this morning.
Sure, thank you.
Information. Truth. is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.